As a writer, you're kind of, I hadn't thought of this before, but like you're writing each of these characters that are so different, and then the way you interact with the actors themselves with the material, you're sort of like writing that as well. You know, it's all like layers of creation.
Hi, Castille. I'm Caitlin from Student Edge. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Congratulations on the film. This series has obviously such a massive fandom who adore these characters and the stories. So, how much pressure did you feel then stepping in as director?
um, I didn't feel pressure until it was actually announced. And it leaked initially when it was announced. So that was like, there was kind of an uproar initially, and then I felt the pressure. But until then I hadn't. And that's actually when I realized like the scope of the fandom too, because, it's such a niche audience that I hadn't tapped into fully, but it was a really great thing that happened actually, like when the fandom found out and kind of erupted on socials, which I didn't really use that much before all of this. They were really interactive, and like they were very clear with what they wanted, and that's nice, to hear. Like, okay, this is what your audience wants. Great. All you have to deliver that. As opposed to like sometimes when you're creating things, it's like, well, what do I think is really great with this? And like to have an audience that's like, no, this is what we want, is like, oh, it's nice to have that guiding light.
Yeah, what an interesting layer to kind of add to, your own experience. And over the past films, we've seen Hardin and Tessa's relationship grow. And at times it is really complicated and turbulent. I'm wondering, what did you really want to highlight about their relationship in this movie?
Well, I think we're seeing them in a very different place than we've seen them in the previous movies. Like they were causing their own drama in the other ones. Whereas now they're more of a unit, and there's these outside forces that they have to figure out how to adapt or like navigate, whether it be career or family. And so that to me is really relatable, and also helps make the franchise mature. Because I think, when you're getting caught up in like more of problems that you create in a relationship, that's a little less mature. And the audience has gotten older. So I think that really worked well. So I kind of started off with that. And then really focusing in on the Hardin and Tessa of it all, as opposed to, there's 800 pages and there's a lot of other storylines. But to me, the emotional core is Hardin and Tessa. So those were, the most important for me.
For sure. I think the fans would definitely agree with that. And so it sounds really exciting. What was it like working with Hero and Josephine on this, who have, played these characters for so long now?
Yeah, they were really great. They knew their characters quite well. But I think this material also challenged them in new ways. And so it was really fun to see them pushing themselves to a different level. And they're both, at a stage in their careers where they've done a lot, but they also are still learning, and they're both very humble. And so being able to kind of finesse and work on these scenes was great, because they're not set in their ways right now. I mean, at some point they're going to be, as all actors become like, this is my process. But as of now, like they were just like so easy to work with, because I could give them a note. They were humble about it. They and Josephine has a lot of thoughts too about, I mean, actually both of them do, but she's like very methodical, and she's written everything out, and she's like a student of acting. And Hero is like, he works from the gut. And so to work with both of them, it's like, for me, it's really fun because they're both so smart and so talented, but they're completely different. So having to figure out like the Hero of it all, the Joe of it all, the Harden of it all, the Tessa of it all, the fandom, the books, and kind of juggling all of that is like a really fun challenge for me as a director.
You are gonna be swamped. You're not gonna have any time for anything like friends, family, and especially not people like...
People like who? Me? Is there something you want to tell me, or should I ask Landon, because he seems to know a hell of a lot more than I do?
Not today, Satan. I am gonna see you both this weekend at the lake house.
Don't bet on it.
We'll be there. It must be so cool to work with actors who have very different processes, right? Because as you said, like you do one thing for one person and it works, and then the other, you need to do something different.
Totally, It is really fun. And as a writer, you're kind of, I hadn't thought of this before, but like you're writing each of these characters that are so different, and then the way you interact with the actors themselves with the material, you're sort of like writing that as well. You know, it's all like layers of creation.
Yeah, amazing. And obviously it's such a massive accomplishment to have directed both After We Fell and After Ever Happy, let alone during a global pandemic. I'm interested to know, what advice would you give to other young aspiring female directors?
Right. I think writing is really, really important, both from the standpoint of like really understanding character and story, but also getting the material. I think procuring material is the hardest thing. So either writing or actually teaming up with a really great writer or content creator. You know, that's like the great thing about places like Wattpad, for instance, where it's more democratic. Like you can access those writers. So I guess if you don't have the skills to write yourself or to come up with a concept, you can kind of like team up with someone. That's also another element that I find so crucial that's kind of not talked about much, but like the teamwork element of it. It's not just people sitting in a room by themselves creating all of this. It's like it really takes a village. It takes a whole family to put this together. So finding your core people and working everybody's skills to the highest level and collaborating with each other. That's, I think, the crux of it.